I am pleased to say that at last I have managed to get this chain case out. It is free at last. Bit of a struggle to get out of this space because of this cabling. I think that is what slots in. This is where that pipe was bolted on. But at long last, that casing is free. I guess it looks in pretty fine order actually. Oh, what have we got here? A little seal. Looks slightly distorted to me. We're now in a position to start removing the cam cover, the target that I have long been aiming for. Now this is the tool that holds the cam cover down in place while the bolts are tightened. Unfortunately, because of these arms and the spread they've got, once they're in place on cylinders number 2 and number 5, they do actually cover up various bolts. So I need to get an idea of what bolts will be covered, as these will need to be the ones removed first. But talking of remove first, let's get the spark plugs out of cylinders 2 and 5. Right, so the next thing is to find out exactly what is covered up and remove the appropriate bolts. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts that will be covered up. Those 4 bolts need to come out first, and I suspect it's going to be the same. Yep, same here. I've got to also watch for these bolts just behind, because it's very, very close to those. I don't want to get to a point where I've actually got no room to get a tool in. 10mm. Always be careful of patterned part. I had a problem with this one where the roll pin in the middle of it sheared off, and I've actually put this toughened nail in to secure it. It's holding it, but it is the most cowboy way of doing things. I should have got a new roll pin to go in there. So when I first got these, one of the threads was damaged and it would not thread into the plug hole. I had a die that I ran down it to clear the thread out, and it's now working properly again. I'm sure you get the idea of how this works. The long stud screws into the spark plug hole. In my case this is a 17mm hex head. You tighten that down as much as you like. Try not to allow the tool to tighten as it goes. Keep it nice and slack. You want this to sit right down to its bottom, to its very bottom. There we go. It doesn't need to be overly tightened. This needs to be nice and slack. Superb. The only point at which that needs to be tightened is once you start to release all the bolts. At the moment I'm just checking to make sure. There is a bolt at the back here. Let's show you. There's a bolt here that is very, very close to the tool, and it may be difficult to get a socket in there. Actually, I think that would just about fit. We'll give it a try with an actual tool in a moment. but if not, I'll have to whip that back out. Actually, no, that's excellent. Is it? No, it isn't. No, it isn't. That won't fit in there because of the tool. No. So that one will have to come out, and I'm probably going to have the same problem with that one, so I might as well whip that one out now. And another little demonstration for you. You can actually see that this is set slightly this way compared to him and him, and it's also lower, which means the tool has to reach down further past the compression tool. That's what I'm calling it. I don't know what it's properly called. So we'll nip him out, we'll take the tool out of the way, we'll nip out the other one from behind here. Back in. Therefore, it goes without saying, be very, very careful when you're putting these in. Make sure they are straight in. Make sure that it is turning easily with your fingers. Just like that. Lovely. Yeah, that started to catch. Now that is a little bit tight. I'm pretty sure that feels like it's got the threads. Okay. Make sure that's sat level. Make sure I can access all of the bolts. Yep, looks pretty good. There's one at the back here, again looks a little bit on the tight side, a bit worrying. This doesn't look so bad. Yeah, it looks like I can access these okay. I'm just a bit worried over this side. The height of that stud is actually holding this up. You can see this stud here and this one here are both holding it high, so there's a gap between the clamp and that spark plug hole. So it's holding it on these. There's an access, maybe an access problem to this. Oh, sorry, to this bolt at the back here. That one. With all the bolts now removed from up the centre, all the way along, and including the two bolts that were hidden under the casing, with all those now out of place, I can now work my way around the outside and do all the bolts around the outer edge. These clamps are obviously now secured into place and hopefully taking the pressure of the casing. I have to keep in mind that I still have these end caps to remove and to lock the timing clamps on to hold the cam timing in place. Just as a little footnote, there is also the engine lift points which have larger bolts going through the centre at opposite corners, so I will take those out first before I start to unbolt all the smaller bolts. Also worth noting that there are smaller bolts also on the inside. And just to make sure, yeah, there's a bolt just there, needs to come out. So there are a few little hidden corners where bolts will hide. I may have mentioned earlier these are 10mm head bolts, but the two larger ones that are diagonally opposite that hold the engine hoist mounts or the engine lift mounts, these are 13mm head. For access to this one at the back here, you've got to watch because of the height of the bulkhead. I wasn't able to use an extension on that. Just another little point of reference. Next to the rear engine hoist mount, there's a 10mm bolt that has this earthing strap on it. Just be aware of that. Be careful not to break that strap when you're undoing the bolt. Right, all the bolts are out. Huge tub of bolts there. I don't think I've ever seen a rocker cover with so many bolts in it, but I just want to go around and make sure that there's no bolts hiding away beneath here. Those three out. Anything else hiding in the back there? Oh, what's that? No, nothing. It's quite difficult getting the camera in here. Looks like that's all out. That's all out. Certainly all the ones along this side, pretty sure are out. Let's go have a look at the end here. Definitely no other bolts here. Iron harness getting in the way a bit there. And hiding down there. Those two are out. That's it, I believe. Right, gently, gently. Oh, you can hear it releasing in the cracks. Yep, that's definitely coming up. We've got about 1mm of a gap here. Might be just enough just to prise these out. There we go, that's one cap out. The other one's going to be a bit more tricky because it's a bit of a tight spot there. There we go, and the second one out. Let's see if we can allow this to slowly rise. That's now free, that's now free, that should be off. Okay, well, seeing as that's not holding anything and that one's not holding anything, we might as well take those off. This is it, folks. This is what we've been working for. This is the moment. Why is that not rising up? What's holding it? What's preventing that from lifting? Huge gap here, zero gap here. What have I missed? I'll clamp this side back down again. Of course, the reason that it pops up is because of the valve action. As I'm compressing this down, I'm actually opening up valves in some of the cylinders. And that's just coming down very, very nicely. No real issues there at all. I'll leave a little bit of a gap there. And for the first time in months, off comes the rocker cover. Now let's have a look here. You can see there's very little sealant here, so it may have been leaking at this point. Not much sealant in that corner either. There seems to be a fair amount of sealant all around though. Again, not a lot here. Thin film. Thin film along here, not very much at all. That's the front, that's the rear. This is where I put extra sealant in to try and stop it getting through there. Now I can see where it's been squeezing into the oil ways here. So I must have put in enough. There are places where it's thicker here than it is over here. I think spreading it evenly is quite important. Cover out the way, that will need to be cleaned.